the next 8 to 9 weeks together as we go through this material. I'm really excited about it, looking forward to it, and I appreciate y'all for being here. I do want to give a few announcements before we get going, and I want to start with the most important, the one I've been asked the most about, and no, it is not about service times or service locations. It's about snacks on Sunday evening. So, no, we don't have any snacks tonight. I was advised to wait, get a basic count, and then use that as a gauge for the following week. So we will try to have some snacks and drinks for the following weeks. I do apologize. We don't have any tonight. If you choose to get up and walk out now, I won't hold it against you. I understand. We all have priorities, right? I get it. So I do have a few other announcements, though. Obviously, again, of lesser importance, but I do want to say we do have a service time change on Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. instead of at 7 p.m. Service time changing on Wednesday at 6. By the way, with the snacks, if you ever do want to bring anything, you're more than welcome to, no obligation. But if you ever choose to or want to supplement, you're more than welcome. And then this is from Miss Britt. We are in need of some new items for the missionary house. That's the house down here we're going to use to have a missionary family stay there. We need these items in by Sunday, June 7th. If you can help out with these items, please see Bonnie Britt. She has a list of what is needed. So if you're willing to help, would like to help, and see what's needed for the house, if you see her, she has that list, and she can direct you and guide you from there. Miss Britt right there. All right. All right, well, let's jump on in. Again, thank you all for being here. I'm looking forward to it. Why I'm doing apologetics, why I enjoy apologetics, goes back to when I was about 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, just finishing up high school. And I think this happens with a lot of people who are saved when they're young. They grow up in church. They go through different times of doubting, and sometimes different types of doubting. When I was about 18, the type of doubting I had was not so much of did I understand what I believe. It was more of, is what I believe true? And I began to ask a lot of questions that were really weighing heavily on me. Some of things, does life have meaning? Does life have purpose? Why do we exist? Do the things we do ultimately really matter? Those types of questions were really weighing heavily on me. And over the next year or two, asking the question why drove me to something, this, apologetics. And asking the question why is a good thing. Sometimes people get upset. Why does this student ask why? Asking why is a great thing. My niece, Blakely, she's the 2-year-old, she has discovered this word. And she asks it nonstop. So I try to always give her an answer. If you ask why, I'll give you an answer. And that's something my parents did with me, and I do really appreciate that. It's not when I ask why, it's because I said so and move on. But no, let me give you a reason for why for this answer. So I try to answer, and now she just asks to infinity. So I finally get to a point where I answer, and then I get to a point saying, I don't know. Why? Well, frankly, I'm ignorant. That's all I got. I have nothing else for you, child. I'm sorry. I'm a failure as an uncle. No, but this is, that led me to apologetics and learning this more and more. And this, I'm still on this journey of learning more about who God is, and we all are. But when we start this week, we're going to have about 9 weeks of this and try to do a different topic each week. This week, I wanted to start off with an introduction of what is apologetics and why is it important. What is apologetics and why is it important? This is really an introduction to the class this week. So what is it? First of all, I'm going to start with what it's not. If you were here last Sunday morning, I mentioned what it's not, and I've been asked this a number of times. It's not apologizing for being a Christian. Apologetics is not learning how to apologize. We're not apologizing in the sense of I'm sorry. That's not what this is. Christian apologetics, and this is what it is. Christian apologetics involves making a case for the truth of the Christian faith. It involves making a case or even making a defense for the truth of the Christian faith. Apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, which means defense, as in a court of law. So apologetics is making a rational defense of something or making a case for something. And we do this, and it's not always with the subject of Christianity. We do this every day. We've done this all of our life with different things. Depending on what you like, you probably make an apology for it, an apologetic for it, right? You make a defense for it, such as maybe Chevy versus Ford, Coke versus Pepsi, Duke versus Carolina, right? LeBron versus Jordan. If you know, if you are 40 and up, you may be like, that's not even a conversation. Why would you even say something like that, right? That's what I thought. If you know Steve Hall, he's so funny. He will poke at my brother, and I love him so much for it. I think that's our bond. You know, I mean, he will poke at my brother, and it's amazing. So he will make claims against LeBron all the time. LeBron, he's not even in the top 10 best player in history. Not even top 10. I mean, claims like that. Well, that just sets my brother off. No, let me explain to you. And he will begin to enter his apologetics for LeBron James. If you're a LeBron hater as well, you can take that up with my brother. It's all good. But it's to make a defense for something. And we're told in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, to do apologetics. So if we go to 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, it says, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear." So let's just quickly walk through this verse. It's basically saying to set God apart in your hearts, to sanctify him, to set him apart. He is the one in whom we trust. He is the one in whom we follow. We have set him apart. It then moves on to be ready always. That's an imperative. That is a command. When I was in summer day camp, I'll do summer day camp in the summer times. And this is a little bit of an adjustment for me because I teach in the middle school and high school. Mostly high school. I did have one middle school class this year. So go from teaching, 17, 18-year-olds to a 7-year-old. And that's a quick adjustment. And so if a student may be doing something that they ought not be doing, I'll say, hey, I don't think it's best that we do that right now, all right? That's an easy way to just start, right? You start there and escalate if they choose to. Middle school, high school, oh, gotcha. I read what you're saying. I'm done. I'm sorry, my bad. 7-year-old doesn't pick up that cue. Like, no, I do think it's okay. Okay, well, then let me explain it's not okay. We're not going to be doing that. That's wrong. We're going to stop doing that, right? It's like, I wasn't asking. It's a command. I was just putting it really nicely, right? This is a command. Here we have a command. Be ready always to give an answer. To give an answer is actually the Greek word apologia. To do apologetics. To make a defense, to make a case for the hope that is within us. Thomas Schreiner says, it envisions not a formal courtroom. The believer is instead in informal circumstances when believers are asked spontaneously about their faith. We live in a world that is constantly asking and making claims that create opportunities for us to be able to do apologetics. Maybe you've been sitting there in conversation with someone, or maybe you're just overhearing a conversation that maybe you are or not included in, but something that just may get thrown out. Science disproves God. Don't you know that Jesus was just a good man? He was just a moral teacher. The things that people believe about Jesus, that was just made up centuries later. Don't you know the Bible is full of errors? And these claims that are made, or questions, if those same statements are put in the form of a question, we are to be able to be ready. We ought to be ready to give an answer. Anyone who has a question about it. Have you been asked about your faith? Whether it be they already know you're a Christian, or maybe they just ask because they see your lifestyle of, wow, you're an honest person, you're a kind person, you have forgiveness in your heart, love, respect, sincerity. Hey, what's different about you in the workplace? I hear your talk is different. You talk about God. What is this about? Be ready to give an answer. We're also told to do it with meekness and fear. Meekness has the idea of gentleness, humility, courtesy, and considerateness. When we give answers to people who are looking for them, we're not to do it in a condescending, arrogant, put you down type of way, but with gentleness and humility. And fear here is actually talking about a reverence for God. They recognize as we do this, we are doing this in the fear of God, that we know our God, we are following our God, we are reverencing him properly. So as we see here, to be ready always to give an answer, we're commanded to do this. So the question isn't, should we do apologetics? Because we're commanded to. The question is, how good are we at doing it? How good are we at giving an answer, making a defense, making a case for Christianity? We see Jesus actually doing apologetics. I want to show a few people in the New Testament doing apologetics. If you go to John chapter 5, starting in verse 33, Jesus is giving evidence. He's giving a reason for the truth. In verse 33, he says, you sent unto John, and he bare witness unto the truth. He says, hey, you need evidence? You need reason? Hey, there's John the Baptist. Ask him. He's an eyewitness. He's reputable. Ask him, and I'm appealing to him as evidence. Just a few verses later in verse 36, he says, but I have greater witness than that of John. If John's a great witness, I've got an even greater witness. I have greater evidence stacked up. Here it is. For the works which the Father hath given me to finish, the same works that I do, bear witness of me that the Father hath sent me. You want to see, look at the works I do. I heal the blind. I heal the lame. I heal the sick. I feed. Look at the works that I've done. They show who I am. Verse 37, he appeals to the Father. The Father himself. He sent me. At my baptism, he said, this is my beloved Son. This is my Son. He is bearing witness to me. Again, more evidence. In verse 39, a fourth witness he gives is the Scriptures. Search the Scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. The Scriptures point to me. The Father is witness to me. My works are witness to me. John is witness to me. You need evidence. Here it is. We see Jesus doing apologetics here. Matthew chapter 11, we were talking about asking questions and doubting. John the Baptist doubted. When I'd mentioned I have had doubts, I have had struggles in my life, and looking to evidence to bolster confidence. John the Baptist dealt with this. In prison, awaiting his death, he probably never thought he was going to face his death, knowing that his cousin was going to bring in the kingdom. Probably never thought he was going to face this, and now realizing he is about to die, wonders, am I wrong? And he has his disciples go ask Jesus. Go ask Jesus, are you the one or not? And Jesus doesn't say, are you kidding me? I'm your cousin. You doubt me? You are John the Baptist. How dare you doubt me? He doesn't say that. He says, hey, disciples of John who've been watching, you've seen the works that I've done today. You've seen the Scripture that I've fulfilled in doing these works today. Go tell John. Give him the necessary evidence to give him the confidence he needs to know that I am the true one who is sent by God. So we've seen Jesus do apologetics. We've seen Jesus invite questions and answer with evidence. We see Acts chapter 17, we see Paul do the same. In Acts chapter 17, the mission of Paul, as you read about Paul all through the book of Acts, here's his MO. He goes into a city, first place he goes, synagogue. He walks into a synagogue, he opens up the scrolls, he begins arguing with them from the Scriptures. He does this because they believed the Scriptures. They viewed the Scriptures as authoritative. So he would appeal to them and say, listen, here's the scriptures. You believe them. Now let me show you from the scriptures that the Messiah, it is necessary for him to have come and to have died and to have risen again. Now Jesus is that Messiah. And that is the case that he would make in the synagogues, appealing to scriptures. But in Acts chapter 17, partway through, you see him enter into Athens. He ends up making it to Areopagus or Mars Hill after he's walked and he's seen idolatry everywhere, altars everywhere to all these pagan deities. What's interesting is what he does. He doesn't walk in and say, now, all of you pagans who know nothing about scripture, open up the scroll to Isaiah. He doesn't do that. They don't view it as authoritative. But they do have authority in their life. Truth claims that they hold to and they recognize as authoritative. And he appeals to those and interacts with those and engages with them on that level to begin the conversation that he ends with the gospel. So what he talks about in Acts chapter 17 is about this God, this unknown God that you're worshiping. Let me tell you about this God. He is transcendent. He's not like your gods. He's above them. He is the creator of all. He's uncreated. He's the maker of all things. He doesn't need a home to live in made with your hands. He's above that. He has interacted in all of history. He is the bringer of all things good. And then he moves into, and he will judge one day by his son who he raised from the dead, and moves to the gospel. So you see him take two completely different approaches in this, but the same gospel, because some people say, I don't understand, I don't know the Bible, I don't view it as authoritative. But you see him use apologetics, use history. He even quotes a pagan poet during that time. Even they know, he appeals to that. To history, to philosophy, to science, to logic, to human experience. And we must recognize our audience and be able to engage them, making authority that both we and they recognize. I had a professor that would often say this: all truth is God's truth. All truth is God's truth. So whether it's philosophical, historical, scientific, or whatever it may be, if it's true, it's God's truth. So what is apologetics? It is making a defense for the Christian faith, or it is making a case for the Christian faith. That is Christian apologetics. So now we know what it is. Second question, why is it important? Why is it important? I'll tell you why it's not important. It is not important to win arguments. It is not to be used to win arguments. My brother and I, we like to argue. Even still, not as much as we used to, but oftentimes we still will sometimes engage in debates and arguments. A couple years ago, I've gotten much better at this, thankfully. But a few years ago, I was ready to engage with him in a debate on any single topic. It does not matter. If I know he disagrees, let's go. Let's argue, let's debate it. Why? Because I just want to, right? Because I want to win. That's really what it was, which is really bad. It's really very wrong, truly. And I genuinely have tried to work on that. But one of the things I would tell him is I would jokingly, this was not serious. This part was very much joking. I would tell him, I said, Kyler, because he would sometimes say, is this really a hill you're ready to die on? I would look at him and say, Kyler, there is no hill I'm not willing to die on. It's just a terrible perspective of life. Terrible. There are definitely hills we should not die on. But I would tell him, there is no hill I'm not willing to die on. I was not the greatest younger brother, unfortunately. I'm trying to make up for that now. So why do we then? If it's not to win arguments, why is it? Number one, it's to increase confidence in believers. Apologetics isn't just for those who are unsaved. It's for those who are saved. It's to help increase the confidence that we have in Christianity. For me personally, it has deepened my faith, and it has deepened my commitment to Christ. The greatest commandment of all, to love our God with all of our heart, soul, mind. We're to love him with our mind. It's to increase our learning and understanding of who he is. And that increases my commitment to him, my love for him, and my faith. It also keeps some believers from walking away, from departing, who are struggling. I had a student who told me, who had said, I was really struggling with my faith before and during this class. I teach this at the school for 9 months, and I had one tell me I was really, really struggling with my faith. This has really helped me know that this is true. So it's also for believers, not just those who are unbelievers. So it's to increase confidence in believers, but 2, it is to evangelize others. It's to evangelize others. One good way I've heard someone say to view apologetics, it's removing obstacles on someone's journey. So I used to run Spartan races. My wife and I used to run Spartan races a few years back. I do not run them anymore, unfortunately. Maybe one day, but used to run them. And the way it would work, you would, whatever the distance was, 5K, 10K, 50K, whatever it is, whatever the distance of the race it is. So you would begin your run, doing your running. Well, at some point in your run, you would approach an obstacle. So every course is, even the lowest number is probably like 20 to 25 obstacles per course. And they vary. So the very first one my wife ever did, we'd been training. She was really, really, really nervous. She'd been doing lots of, the pull-ups, because a lot of it's like climbs across, rope climbs, different types of monkey bars that will swing and move on you and all these things. Very first one we get to, and it was just the nerves were there. It was a big hay bale. So they start you on this one. So I run up to it, hop over, I turn, and I see Abby run, jump, hit, and slide backwards on the other side. I was like, oh no. She jumps right back over it. She's like, okay, I was not ready for that, and then crushed the rest of the course. But it was that first obstacle, it was just that nerve to jump. It was not even the hardest one. She did so much harder ones after. But these obstacles that were slowing her down, slowing me down, right? Apologetics is here to help remove those obstacles as we are able to answer questions for people who have genuine, sincere questions and real concerns that they have. And we have that opportunity. So we remove obstacles, and the Holy Spirit can use God's truth, can use the truth to work in people and draw them to him. Our job is to answer questions, to plant, to water, and let God give the increase. In our evangelism, I mentioned this earlier briefly, that we are to do it with meekness and fear, with humility and kindness. I've already alluded to this a bit, and I've already alluded to this with my brother and I in our relationship. But he taught me a valuable lesson in this when one time we were arguing, and I will say it takes 2 to argue, but we were arguing, we were debating, and I knew I was right, and I genuinely was right. He later admitted I was right. However, in our argument, I didn't show any grace or humility. I wanted to win the argument. And at the end of it, he told me, he said, Cam, you're probably right. You are right. And you won the argument on this. You can win the argument on this. That's fine. And then he said this to me. He said, but if you converse with someone else on any other topic, the same way you just debated me on it, you may win the argument, but you'll lose the person. So then I walked under the door without opening it. After that, I felt horrible. And he was right. He was right. And when we engage with people, we ought to do it with humility and grace and love, because we're not here to win an argument. We're here to win people. We're here to love people, to give them truth, and to help them in their journey, not to walk away and say, man, I got them, I showed them, I told them. That does no good for the kingdom of God. So as we go through this, remembering that in moments of difference and in confrontation and discussion, that we are to do it with humility and love, because those are absolutely required. So that's why it's important. It's not to win an argument, but it's to increase the confidence in believers. It is to evangelize other people, those who are unsaved. So that's what it is and why it's important. There's a third aspect I did want to address before we launch into next week. And I get this question sometimes, and I've wondered this before. Okay, why are we having to learn these things? Isn't it just all about faith? Isn't just Christianity just nothing but faith? Why do you need apologetics? And so another question is, what is the relationship between faith and reason? Is really the heart of that question. Reason and faith, what's the relationship? And I think what has happened is the church has allowed a secular understanding of faith to creep into the church and our understanding of the word faith. And we have departed from the historic Christian understanding of that word. So I'm going to give a few quotes of people, secular people, who are going to explain what they believe faith is. Mark Twain says, "Faith is believing what you know ain't so." Faith is believing what you know ain't so. I know it's not true, but I'm believing it anyway. That is not the historic Christian understanding of faith. Richard Dawkins, atheist, says, "Faith is the great cop-out, the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. Faith is belief in spite of, even perhaps because of, the lack of evidence." Another states, "Faith is pretending to know things that you don't know, and belief without evidence." That is not the historic Christian understanding of faith. And too often we as a church, all around, have allowed that understanding to shape our understanding of faith. Well, I don't need evidence. It's just what I believe because I believe it. That's never been the Christian understanding. So we're here to push back on that a little bit. We are not called to blindly believe something with no evidence, because to do so would be foolish. That's not strong faith, that's foolishness. So what is faith then? Faith is a state of trust, or we're going to talk about ventured trust, not just an intellectual belief or intellectual assent. And we're going to explain these. Faith is not merely intellectual assent to a set of propositions. Here's what I mean by that. It's not just mentally saying, okay, yeah, I'll say that's probably true. This. All right, sure, yeah, I'll say that's probably true mentally from a distance. That's just intellectual assent. That's not faith. It'd be like saying something like this. I believe that chair could probably hold me. I have read statistics that parachutes work and keep people safe. I do believe that if I went to RDU Airport, it could probably take off and land and bring me to California safely. If I were to say those things, that's just intellectual assent. Faith, first of all, it requires an object to trust. Something to venture our trust in, such as a chair, an airplane, or a parachute, right? We have to have the object of our faith. And for Christianity, the object of our faith is the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is Jesus Christ in the gospel. So, let me give this quote. Faith requires not trust from a distance, but rather an entrusting of ourselves, where we venture or risk ourselves and our well-being to something or someone. Let's take this chair, for example, right? We've probably seen this illustration before with a chair and using the idea of faith. I've heard it this way before. Here's this chair. We just have to have faith that'll hold me. Just believe. You didn't come in and you didn't check it. You just believed with no evidence. That's not true. That would be foolishness. And for me to just say, yeah, it'll probably hold me, that's just intellectual assent. It's just saying, yeah, I probably believe it from a distance. That's probably all that is. Faith is saying, okay, I do have reason to sit in this chair. Well, I know the people who put these chairs out, and I have reason to believe they're not going to put out a broken chair that can't sustain someone's weight. I also can see that all of the parts of it are where they should be. The material seems weight-bearing, and I see every one of you sitting in one. And I've sat in one many a times in my life. That is a mountain of evidence. That is a mountain of evidence to give me reason to place my faith in sitting in this chair. Faith comes in when I move from intellectual assent to venturing my trust and sitting in the chair. That is where faith comes in. There is evidence for the chair to hold me. Did I know 100% that the chair was going to hold me? No. Is it possible that when I turned and picked up my water bottle, someone ran up and took all the screws out and I didn't see it? Sure. It's possible. Is it likely? No. Is it reasonable? Not at all. Rational? Not even close. But it's possible. But I'm going to venture my trust based on the evidence that I have, and I'm going to sit in it. And we get told sometimes, well, Christianity is just nothing but faith. We don't have faith. We have evidence. That is, Christianity, again, one, that's a misunderstanding of the word faith. And two, we have faith every day. Every time you turn on your car and begin to drive, you venture your trust in the car makers and everyone else on the road and the stoplights that are going to work and that the sensors are going to give you correct information. The bank, your doctor, your pharmacist, right? How many of us probably took a pill this morning, but we didn't take we didn't get a lab kit out and start analyzing all the parts and the chemicals within it. And even if we did, we would have to have some level of trust in the equipment. And so on and so on and so on. So everyone does. Every day and in everything, everyone has to venture their trust based on the evidence they have. Everyday life and in worldview, the atheist, the Muslim, the Christian, each is venturing trust in something. The Christian worldview is the most reasonable and most meaningful and worth venturing your trust in. Even today when you ate, you had evidence to believe that the person who prepared your lunch didn't intentionally poison you. You may say, Cam, that's not really a fair one because my spouse made my lunch. Like I said, you had to venture your trust based on the evidence that they did not intentionally try to poison you. We're not called to blindly believe something without evidence. That's not Christianity. In fact, to do so, to make that claim would be foolish. We are given reason to have faith. You're given evidence to venture our trust in Christianity. Christianity has significant evidence pointing to its truth, and that's what we will be going over in the following weeks. We need to know it for ourselves and to be able to give an answer to everyone who asks of us. So for a recap, what is it? Christian apologetics involves making a case for the truth of the Christian faith. Jesus did it, Paul did it, and we are called to do it. Why is it important? It's important to increase confidence in believers and to evangelize those who are not believers. So here's our challenge for the week. Jude, book of Jude, verse 3. It says, "Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints." To contend means this: to exert intense effort on behalf of something. To exert intense effort on behalf of something. Will we be willing to exert intense effort for the faith, for the gospel, for Christianity? This theology, this branch of theology, apologetics, is a lifelong journey that takes work. It takes commitment and work. So the question is to all of us, are we ready, are we willing to put the hard work in and to ask hard questions to get difficult answers, but meaningful answers? This class at the end of the 9 weeks will be nowhere close to the finish line. It will look a whole lot more like the starting line as we introduce this branch of theology. At the end of each week, I do want to do this. I want to give some resources as we go out into the week. So each week, I'm going to try to give an apologist of the week, some resources that they have if you're interested in continuing this on your own. And I will preface, every person I'm going to give, you will not agree with on everything. I don't agree with on everything. They don't agree with each other on everything. And I had a professor in college tell me this: if two people agree on everything, only one of them is doing the thinking. It's a fair point. Having differences is going to happen, but much of what they will provide is solid answers to difficult questions that can help us in our journey. So the first one of my professors actually from college who taught me apologetics introduced me to this person in his book. It is his name is Frank Turek. He's actually grown in a little more popularity over the last probably year since Charlie Kirk's passing. I didn't even know he was associated with Charlie Kirk until after his death, Charlie Kirk's death. But anyway, he's an apologist. Turek, T-U-R-E-K. He has a website called Cross-Examined. He has a book. He has several books. One of the main books is I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, showing that there is more evidence and reason for Christianity than there is for atheism. Pretty clever title. And he also has a podcast of the same title. So I'm going to try to give a different one each week, just to give you someone for you to begin looking at, researching, looking for resources, and maybe help us all in our journey as we begin asking more questions, getting more answers, and working through it. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for starting this journey with us. I'm looking forward to the rest of the 8 weeks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to talk, and I really enjoy the conversation. Before we go, I do have one last announcement, though. We are taking apart the platform again because we are going to have our auditorium start to be remodeled this week. So if you could and you're able, when we're done, if you could head that way. Mr. Morris is going to lead. Are you going to be down there? He's going to be leading that down there and directing it. So if you're able to, that'd be awesome. Thank you all so much for coming, and I'd be happy to talk if you want.
If you'd like more information about our church, visit our website at lbcdurham.org.